So here we are, Earth, a planet that somehow survived 1,000 years of peace. I know, sounds boring, right? 1,000 years with no wars, no global catastrophes, no massive dramas. We had a nice run. But then, boom, the Blargons decided to show up and ruin everything. Now let me be clear, no one really asked for their visit, but here we are. They thought Earth would be an easy target, like a little snack that wouldn't put up much of a fight. They thought, hey, let's go invade that planet. They've been peacefully minding their own business for so long. How bad can they be? Well, here's the thing. Humans are the weakest link in the galaxy. But that doesn't mean we're helpless. Oh no. We may have been sitting around in our cozy little corner of the universe, enjoying a peaceful existence, but that doesn't mean we forgot how to throw down when it matters. The Blargons, yeah, they had their fancy ships, shiny technology, and probably way too much arrogance. But us, we had something far more terrifying, 1,000 years of boredom. And that's when you know people start getting creative. So what happened? The Blargons thought it would be a cakewalk, like taking candy from a baby. Instead, they got more than they bargained for, because humans might seem like the underdogs. But trust me, we've got some moves that'll make even the most advanced species think twice. Spoiler alert, it doesn't end well for them. But first, let me tell you how this all went down, because it's not as straightforward as it sounds. The Blargons, bless their overconfident little hearts, were about to learn just how wrong they were. Welcome to the biggest mistake in galactic history. You're going to want to stick around for this one. The Blargons had it all figured out. Earth, in their eyes, was just another little blue planet spinning in some random corner of the universe. They thought, what's the harm in taking over a place like that? It's practically a vacation spot. To them, we were nothing more than an easy target, just a bunch of humans living in peace, minding their own business, not even realizing how insignificant we were. I mean, we don't even have laser guns or anything cool like that. To the Blargons, it was an obvious choice. Swoop in, take over, and move on to the next planet. Piece of cake. But here's where they really messed up. They thought humans were weak because we didn't have intergalactic warfare in our daily routines. We're not out there building Death Stars or whatever aliens do. Instead, we're busy with things like getting coffee, arguing over the best pizza topping, and binge-watching shows we'll never finish. Yet somehow, they missed the fact that we have something far more dangerous: survival instincts and creativity. The Blargons couldn't fathom how a species that spends half its time complaining about traffic could have anything to offer in a fight. So yeah, the Blargons thought Earth was a walk in the park. And they were about to find out that underestimating humans is never a good idea. Spoiler, it's not going to be pretty for them. But hey, it'll be fun to watch. The Blargons arrived with all the confidence in the galaxy, ready to dominate Earth with ease. They had everything planned out: fancy ships, powerful weapons, and an overwhelming sense of superiority. Their mission was simple: storm the planet, take control, and move on to the next place. They probably figured humans would cower in fear at the sight of their ships, begging to be spared. They couldn't have been more wrong. Instead of a world ready to crumble at their feet, they found a planet full of people casually going about their day. See, humans don't just live in constant chaos or panic. We're weirdly chill about the big stuff. We've been through some tough times, but we've learned how to adapt. And that's what the Blargons didn't account for. They thought they'd show up and find a world that would immediately go into panic mode, like in all those sci-fi movies they probably watched. Instead, they found humans doing what we do best. We were just living our lives. We weren't worried about a bunch of aliens showing up. We were more concerned about what's for lunch. It wasn't exactly the dramatic showdown they were expecting. The first time the Blargons encountered humans was a shock to them. They landed near a park where a group of people were having a picnic. No military forces, no weapons, just families and friends chilling on the grass, arguing over who would take the last slice of pizza. The Blargons probably thought they'd find humans trembling, maybe trying to run or hide. Instead, they were greeted by people casually sipping their iced tea, complaining about the weather, and deciding which game to play next. The Blargons were completely thrown off. Is this some kind of trick? They must have thought. Where's the chaos? Where's the fear? Humans weren't panicking, they were just existing. It wasn't what the Blargons had in mind. They expected Earth to be a hostile, dramatic battleground. But instead, they walked straight into a situation where everyone was too busy debating the best way to roast marshmallows over a fire. It was honestly kind of embarrassing for the Blargons. They'd come all this way, only to find out that humans were perfectly fine, possibly even better, when we weren't fighting each other. The Blargons were completely baffled by human behavior from the very beginning. They just couldn't wrap their heads around it. For starters, they observed humans playing a game called football, and to the Blargons, it looked like utter chaos. They thought, wait a minute, these creatures are fighting over a ball. They're running around, chasing it, kicking it, and yelling at each other. Is this some sort of primitive battle tactic? To the Blargons, it made absolutely no sense. They were used to highly organized, no-nonsense systems. Everything in their world had a purpose, and everything made sense. But here, humans were just kicking around a ball and calling it fun. It was mind-boggling. Alex couldn't help but laugh at their confusion, sarcastically remarking, "Ah yes, the ancient art of football. It's humanity's greatest achievement, right next to pizza and complaining about Mondays. You'd think we were training for intergalactic warfare. But no. We just want to know if we can get the ball in the net. And yes, we do this for hours on end." The Blargons just couldn't believe it. They had ships that could travel across the galaxy in seconds, but humans, we were spending our time kicking balls around fields. They were probably asking themselves, how is this supposed to help them defend their planet? Then there was the issue of multitasking. To the Blargons, humans were a mystery. They would observe one person answering emails, cooking dinner, and watching a show on TV all at once. To them, this was just plain absurd. How can one being perform so many tasks at the same time? Don't they have a system? Shouldn't they be focused on one thing at a time? They were used to a much more structured, systematic way of doing things, where everyone had a specific role and task, and things were done in neat, orderly steps. Alex, with that trademark sarcasm, pointed out, "Oh, you don't know the best part. Humans have mastered the art of doing everything at once. It's like juggling, but instead of balls, it's emails, groceries, and arguments about who left the bathroom light on. And let's be real, half the time we're only doing it so we can avoid actually facing the one task we're supposed to be doing. But don't worry, we make it look super efficient." The Blargons were completely flummoxed. They could see that humans were somehow getting things done, but they couldn't figure out how. They thought, how do they manage to accomplish so much, yet remain so chaotic? To the aliens, it was as if humans were working without any kind of logical plan, yet somehow they were still getting by. It was like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces kept changing shape, but in the end, the puzzle somehow came together anyway. It made no sense, and the more they tried to understand, the more confused they became, and then came the part that really got to them. Humans just kept going. There was no grand plan, no secret weapon, no heroic battle stance. Humans just adapted, like a bunch of underdogs, who somehow always managed to turn the tables. Alex had a lot to say about this too. They thought we were going to freak out and lose our minds, but here's the thing about humans. We survive. We get knocked down, but we always get up. No shiny tech, no fancy spaceship, just good old-fashioned creativity. And a bit of stubbornness, honestly. The more the Blargons observed, the more it became clear. Humans were not the weak, unimportant species they'd assumed, but instead of being impressed, They were just confused. The Blargons, with all their advanced technology, still couldn't make sense of the chaos and the cleverness of human culture. They were starting to realize that this planet wasn't as easy to conquer as they thought, and that maybe, just maybe, there was more to these weak humans than they had bargained for. When the Blargons finally launched their attack, they were convinced that Earth was about to collapse in fear and chaos. They had all the tech and firepower they needed to wipe us out in seconds, but what they didn't count on was the fact that humans have an uncanny ability to think on their feet, especially when we're backed into a corner. We may not have fancy spaceships or laser guns, but what we do have is creativity and an unbelievable ability to repurpose just about anything. The Blargons were expecting a full-scale high-tech resistance. Instead, they found themselves dealing with something much worse. Humans who could turn anything, literally anything, into a weapon. The aliens had ships with state-of-the-art weaponry, but all we needed were a few everyday items and a good old-fashioned DIY attitude. Alex, narrating the chaos, couldn't help but sarcastically point out, the Blargons came in thinking they were the smartest beings in the galaxy, armed with tech that could blow up entire cities. Meanwhile, we've got duct tape, pizza boxes, and a little bit of human ingenuity. Good luck with that. One of the most surprising tactics humans used was their ability to hack into the Blargons' advanced systems. While the aliens thought they had the best defense network in the galaxy, humans quickly found weaknesses and used the most basic technology to disrupt their entire operation. A few old-school computers, some out-of-date software, and bam! Suddenly, the Blargons' communications were down. Their navigation systems were all scrambled, and they had no idea what was going on. You'd think they'd have learned by now, Alex joked, but nope, they couldn't even secure their Wi-Fi. What kind of high-tech invasion fails because of a couple of dial-up modems? The Blargons, with all their advanced weapons and gadgets, had no idea how to react when they found out humans were using basic tech and just plain old resourcefulness to fight back. Humans started using kitchen appliances, parts from old cars, and even everyday gadgets like cell phones to create interference and sabotage the Blargons' tech. Alex sarcastically added, "Oh, you came here to destroy us with spaceships. Well, we've got a microwave and a couple of walkie-talkies. Good luck with that." But it didn't stop there. The humans kept using everything they could find to slow down and confuse the alien invaders. They set up makeshift barricades from furniture, scattered random tools in strategic locations, and turned anything they could into a trap. A simple lawnmower, perfect for creating a distraction, a pile of old magazines, a great way to block their view. The aliens just couldn't fathom how humans, who they thought were so weak, could come up with so many bizarre ways to fight back. Alex couldn't help but laugh at the situation. You see, while the Blargons were busy polishing their space helmets and trying to look all intimidating, we were out here with a garden rake and a roll of tape, ready to save the planet. And the best part, the more the Blargons tried to use their high-tech equipment to overpower humans, the more humans came up with ways to disrupt it. One of the most amusing moments was when the Blargons sent in a fleet of advanced drones to track down human resistance. But of course, humans had a different idea. We hacked the drones and turned them into flying pizza delivery robots. Sure, the drones might have been designed to carry bombs, but when we were done with them, they were delivering pepperoni pizzas like it was nothing. "Who's winning now?" Alex remarked, the sarcasm thick in their voice. By the time the Blargons realized what was happening, they were dealing with a full-scale counter-offensive, not from some highly trained military force, but from regular people with a whole lot of guts and a surprising amount of creativity. They quickly realized they had underestimated humans in the worst possible way. The Blargons thought they'd come to Earth and find a bunch of scared, helpless humans just waiting to be destroyed, Alex mused. But instead, They got a bunch of people who were willing to use anything they had to make sure Earth stayed safe. No lasers, no advanced tech, just pure, undiluted human stubbornness. In the end, the Blargons' over-reliance on their fancy technology was their downfall. They couldn't cope with the unpredictability of human behavior or our ability to turn even the most mundane objects into weapons of survival. The humans didn't have all the tech in the world, but what we did have was the kind of resourcefulness that no alien species could ever prepare for. As Alex finished, so the next time some alien shows up thinking they can invade Earth because we don't have their fancy gadgets, just remind them they might have the latest technology, but we've got pizza, duct tape, and the world's greatest survival instincts. As the Blargons continued their attempt to invade Earth, something strange started happening. They began to realize they'd seriously underestimated humanity. At first, they thought we were just a bunch of easy targets, completely incapable of fighting back. But after facing our unrelenting creativity and bizarre resistance tactics, they started scratching their heads. Wait a second, they must have thought. These humans, they're not what we expected. But it wasn't exactly a smooth transition for the aliens. Their growing respect for humans wasn't exactly a wow, we've got a great respect for your species moment. It was more of a, how are they doing this? Why are they doing this? A kind of confusion. Alex couldn't help but mock their realization. Oh, now they're starting to get it. The mighty Blargons, conquerors of galaxies, are looking at humans and going, how are they doing this with duct tape and leftover pizza? It must have been quite the shock. The Blargons just couldn't wrap their heads around how a species they considered so primitive could be so difficult to defeat. After all, they had advanced weapons, sophisticated technology, and highly trained soldiers. Humans? Well, we were armed with household items and sheer determination. Yet somehow we were holding our ground, and the Blargons were growing more and more frustrated by it. What baffled them the most wasn't even our resilience, it was the way we fought back. The Blargons were used to fighting with strict strategies, following orders down to the smallest detail and using carefully planned techniques. But humans, we didn't follow any of those rules. We fought in a completely unstructured, chaotic, and unpredictable way. It was as if we had no real plan but somehow kept getting in their way. They probably thought we'd be sitting in little, organized groups, all standing still in a line, waiting to be picked off. But instead, we were running around everywhere, causing real chaos, Alex said with a grin. And it wasn't just about survival, it was about making it up as we go along and throwing a little bit of humor into it. I mean, have you ever tried to fight an alien invasion with nothing but a garden gnome and a hairdryer? The Blargons weren't ready for that. The more the Blargons faced off against humans, the more they realized just how resourceful and adaptable we were. They probably thought, how can they keep coming up with these ridiculous solutions? How are they surviving with nothing but basic tools and their own weird way of thinking? It was almost as if the Blargons were facing an enemy that didn't play by any rules they knew, and that's what finally got their attention. Humans didn't need fancy tech to be strong. We just needed to think outside the box, or in this case, the pizza box. Alex couldn't resist pointing out how the Blargons were gradually giving us credit, even if they didn't want to admit it. Oh, they were so overconfident at first. But now, they're starting to get the message. These supposedly primitive humans, turns out we're way tougher than anyone thought. And the best part, we're having fun while doing it. Who needs lasers when you've got the world's best barbecue grill and a slightly malfunctioning drone? As the days went on, the Blargons' shock turned into respect, but it wasn't the kind of respect humans might be used to. The respect they were giving us wasn't because of our military might or advanced tech. It was because we were fighting, back in the most human way possible, by adapting to whatever was thrown at us and doing it with a sense of humor and sheer willpower. The Blargons couldn't comprehend it. They couldn't figure out how a species could seem so weak on the surface and yet be so relentless and creative when pushed to the edge. And let's be real, we didn't just surprise the Blargons with our resilience, we did it with style. Alex summed it up perfectly. So yeah, the Blargons came here thinking they were gonna win with their shiny ships and high-tech gadgets, but in the end, they found out the hard way that humanity doesn't need advanced technology to survive. We just need pizza, a little bit of duct tape, and an attitude that says, "Try me." The Blargons were finally starting to respect us, but honestly, it was too late for them. The tide had already turned, and humanity had shown the galaxy just how unstoppable we could be when we put our minds to it. By the time the Blargons realized they were in over their heads, it was already too late. They had underestimated humans from the start, and now they were paying the price. The humans, instead of cowering in fear, had begun to fight back in ways no one could have predicted. With every passing day, it became more and more clear that the Blargons' fancy high-tech weapons and ships were no match for the creativity and resourcefulness of ordinary Earthlings. It was as if humans had unlocked the secret to defeating the most advanced alien technology with nothing but basic objects lying around. And here's where it gets fun. The Blargons thought their sophisticated tech would easily overpower anything we had. They had advanced shields, laser beams, and gravity-defying gadgets. But humans, we had pizza boxes, aluminum foil, and duct tape. Seriously, the humans started using pizza boxes to jam the Blargons' communication systems. That's right, a pizza box, the thing you throw away after you finish eating your pepperoni slice, was suddenly an essential part of Earth's defense strategy. It was as if the aliens had come to invade a planet full of people who weren't just living in the modern age, but also somehow had mastered the art of using trash as weaponry. Alex couldn't help but point out how ridiculous this whole thing was. The Blargons came here with high-tech laser guns, and we're over here winning with aluminum foil. Yeah, take that fancy space lasers. You're no match for a good roll of kitchen foil. The foil was used to short-circuit their high-tech equipment, rendering the aliens' best weaponry completely useless. And if that wasn't bad enough for the Blargons, humans had also figured out how to use their own tech against them. They started hacking into the Blargons' systems, using outdated computers and basic software to cause all sorts of havoc. It was like trying to invade a country only to have everyone use dial-up internet to take you down. The Blargons just couldn't believe it. They had come in expecting to crush a weak, defenseless species, but instead they found themselves tangled in a mess of pizza boxes and aluminum foil. Their advanced weapons, which they had spent years perfecting, were rendered useless by the simplest of Earth's objects. Alex continued to mock their predicament, saying, "What were they expecting? To face us with a fleet of spaceships and get knocked out by a toaster and a couple of rubber bands?" The humans didn't stop there. They turned everyday objects into makeshift tools of resistance. Old cars, perfect for blocking roads; broken televisions, great for creating noise distractions; empty cans. Well, they made pretty good makeshift grenades. The Blargons were losing their minds trying to figure out how they were getting tripped up by things they thought were completely useless. Meanwhile, humans kept coming up with new, creative ways to fight back, all with items they found lying around the house or in their garages. It was honestly kind of hilarious to watch the aliens try to adapt to this new style of warfare. They kept thinking, there's no way these humans can be winning with this kind of stuff. But as each day passed, the Blargons found themselves completely out of their depth. Alex couldn't resist taking another jab. They were so caught up in their shiny gadgets and advanced technology, they never even considered the possibility that Earth's greatest weapon might be a box of spaghetti and a little bit of imagination. In the end, the Blargons were left completely dumbfounded. They had come to conquer Earth thinking they could wipe out humanity with their superior technology. But instead, They found themselves tangled in an endless mess of human creativity, resourcefulness, and downright awkward inventions. The Blargons couldn't fathom how a species so primitive could use simple objects to outsmart them at every turn. It was the ultimate humiliation, and yet humans weren't just surviving, they were winning in the most ridiculous way possible. Alex ended the narration with one final jab. The Blargons came here thinking they were going to take over, but instead they ended up getting outsmarted by a bunch of people who could barely put their phones down long enough to fight back. Who needs lasers when you've got aluminum foil and a little creativity? The Blargons, who once thought they were the galaxy's smartest and most powerful species, were now stuck trying to figure out how to deal with Earth's most unexpected defense. Humans with a lot of spare time and way too many things to repurpose. As the days passed and the Blargons found themselves losing battle after battle, it finally dawned on them that humans were not as easy to defeat as they thought. The Blargons had come to Earth expecting a quick win, relying on their advanced technology and superior tactics to crush humanity. Instead, they found themselves constantly outsmarted by Earth's most unpredictable weapon, human creativity. The more they tried to use their fancy weapons, the more they were thwarted by things like aluminum foil, old cell phones, and pizza boxes. It became clear to the Blargons that no amount of advanced technology could stop a species that refused to give up, no matter how hopeless the situation seemed. Realizing that their invasion was going nowhere, the Blargons finally made the decision to surrender. It wasn't a graceful surrender, though. They were completely embarrassed. After all, they had come here to conquer Earth, only to be bested by humans using whatever they had lying around. It must have been a tough pill for them to swallow. But after being outwitted and outlasted by human stubbornness and resourcefulness, the Blargons had no choice but to admit defeat. They left Earth, their invasion plans in ruins, but they couldn't deny the one thing they had learned. Humans were far stronger and more resilient than they ever could have imagined. In the end, they respected Earth, just not in the way they had expected. They didn't respect us for our technology or our weapons, but for our ability to adapt and fight back when no one thought we could. Alex, in their usual sarcastic tone, summed up the situation perfectly. So, the Blargons are packing up and heading home. I'm sure they're thinking, well, that was embarrassing. Maybe next time we'll take a vacation to the moon instead of picking a fight with Earth. Alex went on. Let's be honest. After this little disaster, the Blargons are probably never going to mess with Earth again. I mean, who wants to invade a planet where the locals fight back with duct tape, pizza boxes, and a lot of stubbornness? They're probably out there telling their friends, never again. Not after we got taken down by a guy with a garden gnome and some string. The Blargons had learned their lesson, but it wasn't the lesson they had expected to learn. They came looking for an easy victory, but they left with a newfound respect for humanity, even if it came with a lot of embarrassment on their part. Alex finished, so Earth's safe for now. But let's be clear, if any other aliens come around looking to invade, they'd better bring something more than just their fancy tech. Because humans, we've got a whole lot of creativity and a surprising amount of things to throw at you. And trust me, we'll make sure it works. So Blargons, here's to you. Thanks for the lesson. We'll make sure to keep the pizza boxes handy next time. So to the Blargons, I say this, I hope you learned something today. But if not, here's an idea. Next time, just stick to sending a postcard. Earth's too much for you. Seriously. Though I don't think you'll be rushing back anytime soon. You came here thinking you'd find a planet full of weak, helpless humans. But instead, you got hit with our creativity, stubbornness, and a whole lot of random household items turned into weapons. Not the battle you expected, huh? But hey, that's just how we humans roll. We may not have the flashiest tech or the fanciest weapons, but we have something far more powerful, resilience and the ability to adapt. When things get tough, we don't back down. We get creative. So to anyone else out there thinking about invading Earth, remember this. We might be the underdogs, but we always find a way to win. And when in doubt, just remember, pizza boxes can do wonders. So Blargons, I hope your trip was enlightening. Next time, maybe stick to somewhere a little easier to conquer, like the moon. Earth? Yeah, we've got it covered.